Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is if you have your natal sun in Pisces and your moon in Scorpio. Another request, and it's really great to do these because for some reason when I'm trying to think of combinations on my own, I don't know, I draw a blank sometimes. But anyway, what we have here are two water signs. The sun in Pisces is a mutable water sign, and the moon in Scorpio is a fixed water sign. Water is emotion, and so this is double your pleasure or double trouble if you feel that you're overly emotional, or maybe a combination thereof, because sometimes emotions can feel very rewarding. It makes you feel like you're really living in a vibrant way versus just kind of numbed out. But there's the flip side where it can feel overwhelming. And definitely when you have the sun and moon both in that element, that could certainly be the case. But perhaps it's only sometimes. So as I have said before, and I've actually spoken specifically of these two signs, I say that when I see a person, usually I'm talking about doing a personal reading, and an individual has either Scorpio or Pisces in inner planets, but specifically sun, moon, and or rising, I think that the person probably has been through more than their fair share of trauma. Now we have, both of those signs in those positions that I'm talking about. So I would definitely say that the majority of you have experienced a lot. And, I could be wrong. I'm sure there are some people that have this combination and maybe they just had like a normal life and everything was hunky-dory. But I just think that is probably more likely that the person has been challenged in that way. But it doesn't mean that it's like the end of the world by any stretch of the imagination, because no matter what somebody goes through, you could look at it as their soul chose to go through that experience. I know that's a controversial point of view because people want there to be victims in terms of the opposite, like allowing people to get away with bad behavior. But it's really not, that's not what I'm focused on, because you can have both. You can have somebody who has been victimized, but also that on a higher level, they chose that experience. That doesn't erase the victimization, but it can actually heal it because it can make the person feel less like life is against them. And with the sun in Pisces, I think that in a way, you could say it's actually better in that case, because the sun in Pisces versus the moon in Pisces, I think, is more proactive in terms of looking for alternative interpretations of their situation, because the sun has an active quality to it. The sun is masculine, and so it is very goal-oriented, very much directed towards the outer world versus towards the inner self. Like the moon is more directed towards that. And so there's going to be more of a universal component to it. And how that manifests for Sun and Pisces people is, yes, there can still be a sense of learned helplessness and that kind of thing. The past can still challenge these people, memories of what happened to them. But because it's the sun sign, they're going to be more positive about it. Masculine signs are positive, feminine are negative. And, yeah, as a woman, that kind of, rubs me the wrong way. But it means inner, negative meaning that inner space versus kind of like projecting onto the outwards. That's what positive means. Like a battery has an outie versus an innie. And so that sense of the person really not allowing their trials and tribulations to get the best of them. And then we couple that with the moon in Scorpio. As I've said, I think this is probably the most difficult placement for the moon. However, I think of Scorpio as one of the strongest signs. So it's kind of like, it sounds a little bit contradictory, but it's not. When I say it's difficult, it can be difficult for that person to reconcile within themselves having the moon in Scorpio. And also it can make them a bit of a difficult person towards others because they are constantly reacting to other people's behavior, but it doesn't mean that it's going to do them in, that it's going to ultimately cause them to self-destruct, because it can actually give you a lot of inner strength. It just is that it might not be easy for you to handle your own emotions, but you may be a very secretive person overall. I was reading in the past recently that Pisces is secretive, and I always thought that Scorpio held that title, but I guess Pisces is as well. I would say in general all of the water signs, but specifically Pisces and Scorpio, it is mentioned that they are this way. And that can affect relationships, because if you don't share your feelings and your true feelings, there can be this divide between you and the other person, because even when feelings are very vulnerable and you might be sharing something that kind of puts you in this light of weakness in the other person's eyes, or how you perceive it, because Scorpio always wants to seem invulnerable, seem like, so that they can feel powerful. But if you have that ability to kind of, I would say, humble yourself, and also not be afraid of what other people are going to do, like if they're going to try to take advantage of that or turn it, like throw it in your face at a future date. If you're not afraid of all of that and you're perfectly able to be authentic and vulnerable, you can bond with another person. And that is really what the moon in Scorpio wants more than anything probably in this world, is to have this like incredible emotional connection with another person. And it's almost scary, the level of what they want. And I'm saying they, but I mean you, is that you really want that. But you might be absolutely terrified about how you would go about getting it without feeling like you're giving everything away, like you're showing all your cards. And so that is one of the challenges in relationships for you. The other one is kind of like it's like a weird like seesaw thing where there's a part of you, and that would be your sun sign, that is more sacrificial, more prone to codependent aspects or people-pleasing types of behavior. And your moon sign in Scorpio that is more antagonistic and vengeful, lacking forgiveness, feeling the stronger emotions, the uncomfortable shadow emotions on a regular basis, and having a hard time kind of being able to quote unquote get over it. And one of the reasons why I said that it's such a difficult position is because Scorpio is a fixed water sign. So fixed meaning, every element has a fixed sign. For the water, it's Scorpio. For the earth, it's Taurus. For the air, it's Aquarius. And for fire, it's Leo. And all four of those signs will share certain characteristics being fixed signs. Namely, on the positive side, that there is a consistency, a kind of like a reliability factor where the person doesn't tend to kind of ebb and flow. They tend to be very steady. And so other people, find them reliable. They're not wavering. But on the challenging side, they can be very stubborn and very rigid in their beliefs or actions and that kind of thing. And, they are known for being loyal, but they also can stay in bad relationships too long. And that's not loyalty, that's just fear of change. So because this is the moon position, it's going to be your emotional nature, and this can lead you to be very crystallized in your feelings. And what that means is it can mean being stuck in a particular feeling, and that makes it hard to get over. So if somebody has wronged you, it's very hard for you to just snap out of that and just kind of move on. You may be feeling anger about it, wanting revenge, wanting them to get their just desserts. And that can lead to having a hard time moving on. And even if it's just a simple situation of the other person not necessarily betraying you, but let's say they just think, hey, I don't think that we're compatible, but you had strong feelings for that person, even if you're not angry about them for leaving, because you realize that they have a right to, be with who they want to be, you still may have a hard time moving on if you have strong feelings for that person, simply because Scorpio is very intense about their feelings. And so when you really when you love, you really love. When you hate, you really hate. There's not a lot of gray with the moon in Scorpio. And so and then when let's say you love, but the relationship breaks up, you're not the type of person to just like snap out of it and move on. And that's not all bad, because some people are very fickle and there's like a shallow quality. They're just like jumping from flower to flower like a bee does, gathering honey, but not necessarily, deeply investing of themselves. They're just kind of trying to get the sweetness, the kind of the lightness from that situation, but they're not willing to invest in it, And investing can sometimes mean the challenging times. Those people who have been in long-term relationships, and I'm not talking about 2 years, I'm talking about 10 or 20 years or 30 or 40 years, that relationships go in cycles. And you're not always in the same season, even within the same relationship. And sometimes there are challenging seasons. And a lot of times it has to do with outer events that are happening or times of that person's life or their partner's life. And it interferes with the relationship in some way, or stresses it, challenges it. And but you still grow by having to endure those tribulations. But some people, they don't want to have to deal with those kinds of things. So, they kind of run away at the first sign of any kind of major conflict. And, I'm not saying that is never warranted to like leave a situation that has a serious conflict attached to it. But people who keep running will tend to find that you can run, but you can't hide. You have to eventually be willing to face all of those demons that are really within the self, even though they seem like they're coming from the outer world. But one thing is for sure, and that is that you're very intuitive and empathic. And this can lead you into careers where you can really let that shine. The typical ones that I would think of is first and foremost the healthcare industry. And, being a nurse more than a doctor because of the nurturing component and taking care of people. Doctors, are the ones that are kind of left-brained and they're more into diagnosing things. But the nurses are the nurturers. That's why you have that ner phoneme going on. And also, let's see what else. Well, anything that is a healer, like a Reiki master, New Agey kind of things, a straight up psychic if you work on the psychic hotline, tarot card reader, astrologer, the usual. What else? You may, even like a psychologist, because Scorpio is associated with the psyche and things like that. And even, I've heard even psychology with Pisces with the 12th house. Therapists, that sort of thing. But in those kinds of professions, the helping professions, and I think especially as it relates to dealing with emotions, you would have to be cautious because you are a natural empath, and those intense emotions that your clients might have, you have to be careful that you don't absorb them because you are naturally very sensitive. And that means that you can take on other people's emotions without even wanting to or knowing that you are. And so any Pisces individual, regardless of their moon sign, has to be careful about the company that they keep also. That you don't want to be around people who are very negative, because that can be very draining. And even people who are not necessarily negative, but they are very like the type of people who demand a lot of attention. I was going to say like Leos or something like that, but I don't want to pick on a particular sign. But people who, we all know people who are very dramatic, and they always, they might be entertaining, they might have a warm heart, but they just are a bit extra in the way that they carry themselves, and they can suck all the oxygen out of the room because they're very attention getting. But there's like this overwhelming quality. I mean, I feel it too. I consider myself an empath, but I don't have, the Pisces Scorpio combination like you do. And I find that certain people are very like draining, even, if they're very extroverted, because they just seem to want a lot of attention. And if you don't give them that reaction, they kind of are, either ticked off or they're wondering what's going on. So being around peaceful people and places is really something that can be that can nurture you, that can feel healing for you. And so the type of work that you do, if it really stirs up the emotions, then it might not be the best type of work, but you would have to determine that for yourself, because that might be the very thing that you're passionate about. And you definitely are a natural healer, so that's where there might be a little bit of conflict there. And you might be a very creative person, so make sure that you are exercising your creativity, that you're not sublimating it, because it can come out in other ways and not so positive ways. And you may be very, very talented and have the ability to inspire others with your creative output. So don't hide your light under a bushel. Okay, well, that's what I have for you. I hope that you related to this. If you would like a private reading, please click on the link below. I'm at rainamoonastrology.com. Take care. Bye.